Friend of the show, Collin Radix-Carter, went to a Justice Democrats organizing event. I assume this was in Washington, D.C., since that is where Collin is based, and that is where you get a gathering of the squad, as appears in this video. Collin's part of the Indie News Network, which put this up on their Twitter feed, and luckily I came across it just in time for the show. I came across this at like 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I'm glad I caught this in time for this evening, because Collin challenged the squad, specifically Ayanna Pressley, on the question of student debt, and he wanted clarification from them. Did you not send Joe Biden a memo which advised him to use the Higher Education Act of 1965 as legal justification for canceling $20,000 worth of student debt per borrower? And did he blow you off? And is the reason that we're in this bind now, where the Supreme Court is almost certain to strike student debt cancellation down, is that not because he did not take your advice? He tried to apply some pressure there. Let's hear what their answer is.
But didn't you give a memo to Biden with Senator Wong regarding student debt to tell him to use the Higher Education Act?
Let me just say this, because I'm going to get in trouble if I start taking questions from the floor, okay? But I want to say on
First of all, why?
Why? Right. Right.
Why
you know, they say these things like they should just be accepted.
Right, like they should just be accepted. As I understand
right, of course. We don't want you to get in trouble talking to the plebs.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, this is not just the plebs, because as I understand, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe I remember seeing Collin and one other pal of ours going back and forth in one of the Twitter groups, because I share a lot of Twitter groups with Collin here. I remember, and like I said, if I have this wrong, please do send me a DM when you see this, Collin, and I will correct it. But if I remember correctly, this did cost some money to get into. It's like an organizing fundraising meeting. So, like, if you're not allowed to take questions from your grassroots donors, then who could you take questions from?
Student debt and where that fight stands right now, it is in the Supreme Court. By the way, expand the courts. Reform the courts, expand the courts.
Deflect.
And it's not that radical, y'all. There is precedent.
Platitude.
6 times before. It's far right, it's extremist, it's imbalanced, and they are causing great harm.
Okay, so
rile up the crowd against the court.
Right. Rile up the crowd against an unsolvable problem, right? Against a problem that's ultimately unsolvable. Like I said, I'm all for packing the court. I think one way they can do it, I brought this up a couple shows back, use this Clarence Thomas scandal as a vehicle to rile up support for packing the court. And don't sell it as packing the court. Say, listen, Thomas obviously has no business serving on that court. We want to impeach him and replace him with a 9th justice. If the Republicans are not willing to do that, then we will simply appoint a 10th justice to cancel his vote out. That's all. There, you've packed the court, and you've given, I think, a perfectly rational justification for why you're doing it that way. Say, we're not trying to pack the court. We just need Thomas out. If you're not going to kick him off, then we're going to put someone in there to cancel his voice out. And so that's what you could do. But in either case, that's obviously not happening, right? There's obviously no universe in which any time in the next decade we're going to pack the court.
Yeah.
And so that's what they say. Well, pack the court. Pack the court.
Well,
don't pressure him to actually adopt the right legal strategy to get this done.
This is where you still have a little reactionary in you, Keaton. You still talk like someone who's trying to solve things or do stuff. Yeah. You know, that they're really not interested in that. It's interesting watching how much they've become these creatures. I mean, Ayanna was always kind of on the fence there, but just watching the tactics she's using to avoid the question, you know, bring up a position that will be popular in the room, but as you say, for which they have no actual solutions, and just get people clapping for that. Yeah, we need to put the court. Yeah. And she, and then, I mean, she continues in that vein, as we'll see.
Yeah, indeed. All right, here we go.
That is where the student debt issue is right now. But that being said, we're all organizers, and no organizer goes into a fight without a contingency plan.
Oh, is that what they call it these days?
But I'm not ready to see defeat here.
I thought you were sellouts.
The legal case is sound. The legal case is sound.
And that's a lie.
So
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
a
the
lie.
legal case is really not sound according to precedent that's been set. I mean, I personally think it's sound. I mean, I personally think you can use emergencies to justify debt cancellation, but that's me. Obviously, if you're going
not
by
sound
what
with
this
this
court,
court.
right, if you're going by what the high court has, how they have already ruled,
Right.
in this context, you can't really say it's sound. According to
If
the high
they-
court, and the
if
high court
they-
is the high court. You have no appeal above them.
If they did not uphold an eviction moratorium in
Right,
the face of
exactly.
a pandemic, why on earth would you think that they would think student loan cancellation it can be upheld under this statute?
Right. They let
There's
the child
absolutely
tax
no
credit
way.
expire. They let the eviction moratorium expire. A lot of the other stuff was expired. I don't even know if you can get there's a whole bunch of stuff that you could apply for during the pandemic, during the height of that crisis. If you fell in hard times, I don't know how much, if any, of that is still available to people. None of it is available to the point where the government is invested in informing people about it. Right. And this was Joe Biden. Right. This was the Biden
Right.
White House. This is part of why people thought you would have a saner and more humane response to COVID if you had Biden versus Trump. Not that people were under the illusion that he was going to really transform things, but you thought basic competency, basic bureaucratic liberalism would provide some type of safety net. I'm not saying I bought this, but I think a lot of people generally bought into that idea. And you're not even getting that. So why, under those circumstances, do you think that the court is going to rule in your favor? Why?
Well, yes, and the fact that he framed it that way, and she is just completely now kowtowing to the talking points that she's clearly been told by the party leadership that she's supposed to put out. There's no way that she believes that the legal reasoning is sound within the context of bringing it to this court. There's no way she believes that. I mean, now they're just there to sheepdog people who don't want to associate themselves with supporting Biden into the Democratic Party. That's the only purpose they serve now. They're not in any way there to represent progressives, whatever that means at this point.
All right, let's keep going.
Stay tuned on that, because we know that was a motivating issue in the midterms for many.
Yes, it was.
This is a transformational, consequential
Right about
issue.
that.
And we're not giving up this fight. So in the fact that we made it this far, first they said the president didn't have the authority. Then they said it would be regressive in impact and only benefit white graduate students who went to affluent schools. And we have challenged and proven all of that wrong. This is a huge coalition of impacted borrowers, civil rights organizations, union workers, presidents, tradesmen and women. But my point is, the progress that has been made is because of the movement.
Okay, that's fair enough if they actually cancel student debt.
Right.
If the court rules against the student debt cancellation,
As is extremely likely.
Exactly. You're saying you have a contingency plan. Well, that contingency plan better be getting people in the streets demanding a redo under the correct legal framework. And are you going to do that? That remains to be seen. Are you going to challenge Joe Biden in an election year to do that?
I'm going to say no for 1,000.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. And believe me, I would love nothing more to be proven wrong about that. Right?
Oh, come on.
So I'll just close
they're
by
not
saying
even
this.
trying anymore.
And it is progress. And listen, 60 million people have already benefited from this relief, provided the Supreme Court follows the letter of
Right.
the law.
Right.
1 in 4 black borrowers will have their debt zeroed out completely. This is 40 plus million people that stand to benefit.
All right, we don't have to watch the whole thing. It gets a little bit tedious here. But, they start listing the benefits of student debt cancellation, which none of us disagree with, if it happens. It has to happen. And it's very likely at this point not to happen. And you bamboozled millions of young people into coming out and voting blue in the midterms so that this would stand or not be overturned, or that this, quote unquote progress would be safeguarded in the next Congress. And turns out that progress seems to be illusory, almost certainly, because it's almost certainly going to get struck down. And at that point, what it will take is mass mobilization against Joe Biden and against the Democratic Party to insist that either this is redone or at that point you have to take it even further and organize a mass boycott or a mass student strike. And we do know for certain the squad is not going to lead.
It's painful for me to watch that answer because it's just such a bunch of bullshit. It's so transparently dishonest. Like they've all just become such standard politicians. You know, just watching that answer, it's all tactics. It's all tactics. There's absolutely no attempt to do anything for the people listening. It's just to manipulate them into clapping and say we're for good things and against bad things and drop a little identity politics in there because that always works. And, you know, that's it. She knows everything she's saying is a lie. She knows that this is almost definitely not going through the Supreme Court. And she probably knows that that's exactly why the Biden administration did it this way, to describe themselves as a movement or movement leaders. It's sickening.
Please clap.